All right, welcome. This is going to be episode, geez, I'm losing track, 8 of Talkin Shop with Outlier Firefighters. I'm Alex Tanner. I have with me Jeff Marusich. And why don't you go ahead and just give yourself an intro about who you are, where you're from, and what your rank, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, sure. Jeff Marusich from Highland Park Fire Department. Been on for almost 25 years, so just a few years, and worked my way up through. I was started out at a blue shirt, and I did that for 21, and then finally got promoted due to COVID. So thank you, COVID. That was definitely a good part that came out of it. Through a little bit of chaos and stuff, ended up getting promoted, and it's been a fast track since. Was a lieutenant for a very short period of time for about a year and a half, and then I got promoted about a year and a half ago to battalion. So that was hard navigating. Not enough time to be a lieutenant and learn that skill, in my opinion. But it was hard to not seize the opportunity when it came. Been very heavily involved with hazmat for 24 out of the 25 years until I got promoted and I had to stop. Did the AFFI honor guard, was union president before, and man, it's been a wild ride. So yeah, it's a little
Involved.
bit, yeah,
Super
very much so.
involved, yeah. I mean, that's awesome, right? Uh,
Yeah,
to be in so many different things. I feel you, for sure, because I think I'm part of that club as well. So
yeah,
what was your first exposure to the fire service? So even like as a kid, uh, it doesn't have to be necessarily like your first department or anything like that.
yeah. As a kid, knew nothing about it, honestly. I remember a couple times in grade school, the fire department would come out and stuff, and but I never wanted to be a fireman. I'm not going to lie to you. I wanted to be, I wanted to do astronomy, and I wanted to be a vet, and everything else. Wasn't until about high school, and maybe even, yeah, it was high school, and my girlfriend, now my wife, her dad was a cop, and just said, you should be a fireman. That'd be pretty cool. I'm like, well, I don't know. Heck, why not? Like, I love team sports, right? Played football in high school, and I said, that'd be pretty badass. And so then I just dove into it. Um, Took two tests, and second test was Highland Park. And hello, at 21, here I am getting hired. And
Man,
I had no idea what I was in store for. No idea.
I don't know if my
But
old man's in here listening yet, but that is very similar. That's crazy. I think he was one
yeah,
test, but so you didn't work anywhere like part time or nothing, just right into
nothing,
full time.
nothing. I kind of had the sense I wanted to do it, when I was in college. And so it was maybe I was in college for about 2 years, and before I got offered at Highland Park. And so I was doing a little bit of school, so I was going for a little bit of the fire service stuff, and so I did my EMT, and that was literally the amount of exposure I had. And I did a couple volunteer hours up at Western Illinois, and so that was the only exposure I had.
Wow.
Yeah, and that wasn't the cool fire stuff. That was just the EMS stuff. So
Yeah,
that's not
yeah.
nearly.
Oh man. So then I guess you got to learn culture, values, ethics, all of this stuff on the job, at your
On the job.
job, right? I mean, that was it.
Yep, that was it. That was it. And I know we did a little prep talk ahead of time, and when I got hired, I just remember, the older guys, the senior guys saying, "Hey, like, we expect the best, and don't come back with Fs. Don't come back with just passing. We expect our department, our standards. You better be, number one." And I adhered to that all the way through. I just, and that rang really true to the work ethic I was taught as a kid. And, my old man did that, and he taught me that. So it just naturally fell into place. I was like, this is going to be a good
Oh,
place.
that's good that you got connected to that right away.
Yeah,
Not everyone
absolutely.
gets that.
No, no, they don't.
End up finding
And,
out
I
later.
think, and part of it too, for when I got hired that many years ago, it was, you got hired and you were locked into that pension. Like, you didn't dare think about leaving.
Yeah, and that is not the
You
case
froze on
now.
me.
Oh, hey, I got you. You're still here. Ah,
Yeah. All right. All right. I got you back.
I'm still here. I'm
All right.
still
I
here.
got you back. All right. So yeah. So, you just, you were locked in, and being that way, I don't know, it just really rang true anyways. So it was just kind of, man, I just landed at the spot that was meant for me without question.
I feel so, uh, and I'm not going to say it's necessarily a bad thing. It has its challenges. I think nowadays that loyalty doesn't exist in the same way, right? I
I
think,
don't think so.
right? We find a lot of even my age guys, my age will leave and go somewhere else very easily. And there's good and bad. I get that. There's some times where you need to leave and you need to fit a place, but then there's other times where maybe you're going a little too early and you could be on the ground floor or something great. I've struggled with that personally myself, and I've made a decision the other way, probably because of some of the. I mean, spoiler for who doesn't know, my dad worked with Jeff for a number of years on the same
Yeah.
department, so a lot of my foundational beliefs in the fire service come from the same ones that you had, right? And I think that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And I think it is, like I sit in on the, what do we have now? It's like it's a committee of retention committee, and that was never an idea back in the day, it just never even retention. No one ever left. And so, yeah, I mean, I think in today's world, there's more of a draw of fitting in the place you really want to be, and I just, I understand why people look at leaving, but like you said, I think sometimes they just, if it's not going right, they just bail right away. And instead of being patient, because, 25 years, there were times where it was like, did I make the right choice, or, am I in the right spot? But if you stay through with it, you'll end up really 99% of the time you're in the fire service. It's the best job ever, right? And so that's kind of where I think is that people sometimes get a little bit ahead of themselves because now they can just go wherever they want to go.
Yeah, I mean, especially now. I mean, you can trip over a curb and end up on a fire department. It seems like now.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's. I guess there's good and bad with that, right? Like some of it holds administrations accountable to make sure their organizations are good, but on the other hand, there are people that again probably do leave too early or for the wrong reasons, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, just because you don't like a piece of equipment you're stuck on for a little bit, that's not a reason to get out of the business,
Exactly. So with that, I think that's a great segue to talking about professionalism and expectations and those kinds of things. So you developed a strong foundation for that, right? And again, we talked a little bit before coming on here, and you were sharing some story about when you were younger, and you got into being part of a really aggressive training culture and bringing some of those values forward. So I'd love for you to share that story.
Absolutely. I going into it, I went through the academy. I went to Elgin, and you ended up my swagger was bigger than what it should be. And my ego was, kind of as the old phrase goes, you're just writing checks, your body can't cash. I thought I had it all licked, 6 months on, hey, I got it perfect. And so, yeah, so at about the 6 month mark, my buddy Ryan got hired. And so he was much more aggressive than I was, So I was like, who is this guy? Because like, what's he coming in here and just, kind of going against the grain of the world. And I soon got humbled when we went to smoke divers together. That was my first real big outside training course post academy, And so, yeah, I got my ass kicked up and down, left and right, and quickly realized, there's something more to this than just putting on the gear and pretending you're going to be a fireman, right? Like there's a real deal. There's a lot more important things because when you're going through smoke divers, you end up dead 5 times in a day. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And so, and that really started setting the foundation for my mentality of, always pushing forward and really trying to always keep your skills. And, I remember I got back from smoke divers and it was, okay, so now I got these skills. And now, so the key is to not lose them, right? Because we go to these classes and we learn just an immense amount of information rapidly. But if you just go back to the recliner, it's all for naught, right? It's just toast. You're just wasting your time at that point. You might be able, keep a nugget or two that you just have in memory, and then whoop-de-doo. So it would be, out on the apparatus bay, climbing under rigs, shifting your air pack, down and doffing it, the emergency procedures, all that crap. Because what in smoke divers, everything that you did was relative to a firefighter fatality. So that stuff mattered, right? And, as you get older, and as I was married and had my first kid, I didn't want to be the guy thinking about my kid in a bad situation. I wanted to be the guy to be able to solve that situation and then go home and see my kid, right? There's a big difference there. Do you just lock up, or do you just perfect that skill so much, there's so much repetition that you're able to, move past your scenario, your hang up of whatever you got going, and then push on. So that's kind of really where it came from. And then things change, as you get older, you really get into some of the more senior things, the FAE. That's so near and dear to my heart as the apparatus engineer, the water stuff. I love it. And then, I was actually very fortunate when the lieutenant retired that was in charge of that, to take that over. And it's just an absolute passion. But I firmly believe if you're not trying to stay on top of your game, like, teaching is the best way you could do it, hands down. Because if you're teaching, you have to know your stuff, bottom line. Because you can try to fake stuff and it goes a little bit, but you can tell when when someone's BSing you. Firemen will point it out and call you out real quick.
Yeah, we're good at that.
Yeah, right. So that's kind of where it all comes from. And so go ahead.
No, I'm with you. I was actually, when you mentioned kids and changing your mindset, and so I've always been into the job. I've enjoyed it. I've always been excited towards those things. But when I had kids, it lit another level that I did not know I had in my passion to learn and get better. And I mean, yeah, like, that's the way you go home, is by being smart and knowing what you're doing. And
oh, absolutely,
that perspective change. Like I said, I was into training. I was into those things. It's not like I wasn't, but it hit another level when my first son was born and I went back to work. And I think that resonates with a lot of people, for sure.
Yeah, it does, because, like I said, you could either really turn into your family, which is super important. I mean, don't get me wrong, and I'll never discredit that. They're your biggest support network you could ever have, but it's your job to absolutely ensure that you get home to them. I mean, and Lord knows we have enough challenges when every day we put that uniform on, there's enough coming at us. And so that's where the training really comes in, is just that, it doesn't have to be 10 hours a day. I mean, let's just,
Yeah.
just be clear.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, I was at a conference a little while ago, and there was a guy speaking, and I liked his message, but it almost was like, they went out at midnight and threw ladders. I'm like, yeah, no thanks. I mean, soon enough, that's going to get old to me. But being an aggressive fireman, I think you got to carve out time for stuff every day, and you got to be active. You got to be in shape. You got to be, smart-minded, and you got to get your sleep the night before. Like, and that's one I kind of hammer down on some of the fellas is, if you come in dragging ass, are you going to be on your A game when you need to be?
Yeah, you're not going to get more energy magically. So
yeah, and 4 monsters into it, your heart's not really going to say thanks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Another thing too, an interesting thought that I had when I was listening to your story about Ryan is, a lot of people, when they get into the fire service, they hook up with a mentor, right? Or they connect, and usually that mentor is someone senior to them. Usually that mentor is someone in a higher authoritative position. It almost kind of sounds like your mentor was a peer, which is actually really cool.
Yeah, and so we went against the grain quite a bit in Island Park, to say the least. And don't get me wrong, there were guys that just I'll never forget, and so grateful for the opportunities that they've given me and the knowledge that they've shared, right? But when we went into AFAs or into fire alarms, we never even carried tools in. Like you were like looked at like sideways when you did that, right? So again, here comes Ryan, and he's just a whole different ball of wax from what the norm was. And so it did with me. Um, and so yeah, my definitely my mentor. I would say we really challenged a lot of department norms and values. Um, and it's just it kind of resonated with us. I don't mind being the black sheep. I really don't. But at some point, we're not the black sheep anymore. You
Yeah.
know, we now there's a herd that is with us, and that I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I mean to build that with your peers and take it over in a sense. Like I said, I think a lot of people look up, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
for validation or for direction or something like that. But yeah, I mean it's interesting, right? You can look to the people that are right there with you for inspiration to do things, and
Oh,
that's good.
absolutely, absolutely. And and I truly believe it's like your company officers that'll set the direction for you. I mean, they're your mentor, they're your guidance, they're there to, and they like our lieutenants, they knew we were full of energy, and they were so good at pulling the reins on us when they needed to, though.
Yeah,
Because when you're a 22-year-old kid and you're just going hardcore and you are a million miles an hour, and then they're like, "Hey, kid, come back here," you know. And I remember a couple fires, I got way ahead of myself and just kind of I remember my battalion sitting me down a couple times and be like, "Hey, you know, you just gotta slow down a little bit." And in those times, they were so valuable because now, as you know how it goes. As you get older, you get a little bit. Your heart doesn't race at 200 beats a minute. It might be 120 when you get a fire. And so when you're able to just kind of roll in, walk up, and just kind of you're able to pull that whole picture in, versus when you're young, it's just that laser focus on that one task you got to do. So yes, but being able to mentor with a coworker is the same age, same stuff. I mean, we went to paramedic class together. We got married literally a week apart from each other. I mean, it's like everything, right? And so yes, it's a pretty cool experience, and it's been really cool to watch the department change um, towards kind of the vision that we saw. And I don't know if I wouldn't say it was because of us, because the leadership believed in us, and that's what you got to understand. You can go against the grain and you can push all you want, but you have to do it, and you have to get the leadership to buy in. And so credit to those guys, credit to the department chiefs and stuff, because they bought into what we had to offer.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Uh, and so with that, on top of the things that you guys were bringing with the training culture, uh, and growing that, so it started with you guys. How did you start to then, maybe infect is the wrong word, but how did you start to I guess infect's fine. How did you infect
Yeah.
others to kind of bring them in, like you said, into your herd?
Yeah. So, you mentioned mentoring, right? And so we saw value in what we were doing. And so we put a lot of time and effort and really kind of just bent the chief of training's ears off and just harped on him 24/7 until he finally gave in and said, "Hey, yeah, I'll let you do a mentoring program." And so we came up with this whole mentoring program. And it was really, just showing a new guy. And mind you, we only had a couple years on at the time, right? Maybe 5. But just showing a new guy the ropes and teaching him, all the stuff that we felt was important, and kind of got a roster and just put like great articles and, just information. And so that mentoring program ran for quite a while, and it still does today, but now Ryan's chief of training. So it's integrated into
Yeah,
the whole recruit process. Um, but I think that's really where things started to shift. Was we got a couple fellas that were from Highwood, and they were aggressive. They wanted to work, and they bought into everything, and I think that's where things really started to kind of rotate and change. But yeah, I mean, again, it was if it wasn't for the chief of training saying, "Okay, whatever, let's try it. It's a good idea." we probably would have been crushed and stopped right there. But again, they bought into it. I mean, obviously, they wanted a little bit of say so in what we did and stuff, and so we worked with them, and it was a pretty laborious effort. I'm not going to lie, but it was worth it.
I mean, it's a grassroots change
Hmm.
that's I think that's what a lot of firefighters search for is they believe in things that they want to change, but they feel like they can't do it. There's a success story of it right there, right? And it's
Yeah.
very similar. So I'm 5 years at my current department, so I'm writing that same thing, and we. It's not just me. There are a group of people that are trying to change things, and I think we're starting to learn that that change is coming from attrition, right? It's coming from new hires, and if we capture these guys, you know, early enough, we could tell them, "Hey, this is what it's supposed to be," and they don't know any
Yeah.
different, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's not, and I don't think you should ever mistake it like you're pushing out the old guys, right? Like
No,
there's they come with so much knowledge and so much other things that they bring, that, but yes, when you want to affect that change, um, you start getting the new people and you start getting some buy-in with them, and then you know, I think the wise old guys, like I'm now the old guy, and they come to me with what they see or envision, and so okay, great, you want to do this, now give me the plan, right? Because you can't just come to the admin and say we want to change it. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, great. Yeah, well, tell me how, and let's figure this out and how we can get this incorporated. You know.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, departments do struggle with that, and I could see when departments are when they're more rigid in their ways. Like when it's admin versus labor, I could see that not working out too well. I've just been blessed with the opportunity of usually having a very good relationship.
yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously that's fortunate, but it doesn't come without the hard work that you've put in. Obviously, right? Like
Right,
there's two
right.
sides to that, right? You got to get a little bit lucky sometimes, but you still got to put in the
Yeah,
work.
you got to put in the work and you got to build your credibility
Yeah,
because we all know in the fire service, your name, your credibility, that's everything, right?
yeah,
Your reputation's everything. It takes years and years to build in about 30 seconds to kill it. So, absolutely.
yeah, yeah. I do got an audience question. So I've got Chief Leidig here. He's asking, who is a bigger influence, the senior man or the company officer?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, me personally, I'd say it's personality. Um, I don't think the senior man should ever go against the company officer, but a wise company officer will use their senior man. I guess that's the best way to put it. You know,
Yeah,
um, if that senior guy has the respect of the crew, I think their weight is worth. I mean, they're solid gold. I know for me, like if I need something pushed out, I'll go to the senior blue shirt and be like, hey, look, like, can we get this done? And that's the last thing I ever need to say, and it'll get done because he's well respected. Um, but on the flip side, when you're trying to drive policy or you're trying to do something that might not be the most popular, I do think it should probably come from the company officer because there's a little bit more weight behind it as far as authority. Not saying it's a dictatorship by any mean,
yeah.
but you know,
There's a time.
that is,
Absolutely.
yeah, that is. But yeah, you know what? I think that when you have a senior guy that's highly motivated, they're unstoppable. Um, you know, I think now I don't know, maybe you would feel different, but I think that culturally there's been a little bit of a disconnect, and so I think it makes it tough for the senior guy when in a new probationary fireman because they're in a whole different realm, they're a whole different world.
Oh yeah.
And I can't tell. I'm sure too with you. Anytime you're sitting in a meeting, it's these young kids, these new kids, and you know it's just a different generation. And whose job is it to really to kind of make the ends meet? Like to me, I think it's the older guy's job to try to meet that new generation's needs. And that's not saying that we sacrifice any standards because I don't think that that's the fire. I don't think that'd just be hurtful across the board. But how do we meet the needs of some of the younger generations' wants and desires and keep that environment of where they want to stay? and they want to feel like they're improving the department.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the middle age wise, I guess, right? Like I'm 33, and we're hiring guys that are 10 years younger than me, right? So I'm like, even with them, I'm lost with certain things, right?
Yep.
Because they're a completely different mindset than I am. Maybe not mindset, but and there are definitely some there's friction, right, between the senior guys and the more junior guys, right? My department might have its hiccups. There's some great senior men, there really are, that are going to retire soon, to be honest with you. But there are some that kind of don't really use their seniority for the benefit, and I think that's probably where junior people see seniority as an excuse to not do things versus a platform to spread the right message and to use that influence they have for good instead of just you mop the floor because you're junior to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think two benefits to me, and it's vacation picks and time off. Like that's about where seniority ends with me, right? Like, I don't care if you're day one or if you're day, year 32, there's a level of expectation that you got to meet. And if you can't meet it, I don't care if you're senior or not, then, you know, the onus is on you, right? And that goes back to the whole training issue and staying motivated. Like, what do we got to do to get you? You might have 30 years on, but there should be no leeway in how much you're contributing between year 30 or between year one.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo your statement, right? I say the same thing. Hey, vacation picks and station. Well, we don't do station picks really anymore, but yeah, it's like that's it.
Yeah.
Like you still gotta, you know, you've earned your seat at the table with your seniority. What are you gonna do with it? Basically, is what it
Absolutely.
comes down to now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to use it for the betterment, or are you just going to be selfish and just use it for yourself?
And yeah, that's where the younger culture doesn't find value in just existing, right? Like and I see it, and with some of our guys in their early 20s, where it doesn't resonate with them at all. Well, he's been here for 20 something years. Okay, well, he's sitting in the chair not doing anything. And
Yeah.
then somebody will
Oh
be
yeah.
like, well, they're senior, and they try to explain that, and it just doesn't resonate to the
No, it means
younger
nothing.
generation. It means nothing. Which there's
No.
good and bad. There's pros and cons to that, right? There should be a respect level, but at the same time, they got to earn some of it still.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. 20 years on the job. Yes, it's awesome, but you still do. You should be trying to earn everybody's respect. Absolutely.
Are you
Just.
guys are still five in a house, or are you like so? We're three at every house now, pretty much.
Oh yeah. No. We're five. Five in the outlying. So we've gone from two-man engines to three.
Okay.
Which has been fabulous.
Yeah.
And then we got the tower ladder that's always three minimum, and they're at the main one with me. So yeah, I mean it's been great. We've grown. We took a hit man power wise back in the recession, and it's been great to get back to where we're at. But with that, I can't tell you. I mean, it's crazy when you start, and then you literally, and any of the senior guys in the chat will know, you blink your eye and wham, you're number 3 in seniority for the department. You're like, what just happened?
Yeah, I can't. I actually, when did Highland Park go full time? What year?
1889.
Oh, they've been that long? Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I think they were volunteer for a couple years, but they went full time very, very shortly thereafter.
Then disregard. I for some reason I thought that my dad was part of a mass hiring.
They were.
Okay.
Your dad would have been. Yeah, your dad would have been,
Okay.
because they put a lot of people on. But
Yeah.
and then I want to say they chartered in 45 is
Wow.
when they went
Wow.
with the union. Yeah.
I think that the point I was gonna make with that is I think those mass hirings create a weird environment for the fire department, because you have people so deep seated for so long, and then all of a sudden they trickle off, and there's mass hiring of young people, and the old people there's a huge gap, I guess is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A department that's had some turnover for some time and hasn't had a open new station or something like that. you're getting, okay, maybe 2 hires a year, 4 hires a year, and then all of a sudden there's like 10, and there's a
Yeah.
huge gap between. I didn't know if you guys had a similar kind of struggle with that, but it doesn't seem like you probably do, right?
No, I mean, this one was pretty big. We just hired 4 in one group.
Okay.
And I mean, it's sizable, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we added one a shift, and then went one through attrition. So it's sizable. And, for us, I can't remember a time in the past 5, 6 years that we haven't had someone going through the probationary process. And as good as that is, because I do feel it keeps everybody on their toes as far as training wise, because, there's a lot of needs to be met in the probationary process for us. But I also think it's strenuous because the companies do feel like they're just always at the tower. They're always drilling with the probies. And, when they're not, I mean, it's clear as day. You hear them say it 3, 4 times a day, like, "Oh my God, it's just such a nice day,"
Yeah.
So, good and bad, good and bad. Just that continuous flow of personnel through, while it's great, it does kind of put a strain on a smaller department like us, because we're continuously always training. And it's not a higher level training, I guess, is the bottom line. It's not like we're trying to up the skill level for everybody. You're trying to meet probationary needs, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you don't get to challenge necessarily some of those guys for another level, right? Because they're always
Yeah,
training at the
yeah.
probationary
So
level.
it's not like you're doing some crazy VMO drill or something, right? You're
Yeah,
just, and don't get me wrong, the basics is where it all starts. Like, I mean, hands down, if you can't pull a hand line effectively, then don't even bother, right?
yeah.
And that's where it all starts. But that's where it kind of stays when you're dealing with the probationary firefighter. And, I think the benefit of it is that like I said in the very beginning, is when guys are teaching, that's when you have to stay on your game. So there's no BS in when you're out there at the tower or at the drill grounds and you're actually pulling the lines. You should be giving the tips and tricks, and you should be teaching the solid foundational practices too. But eventually, like I said, it's not bad that the companies get a break here and there, because what they definitely do the lion's share of work.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's got to be a balance between those two things. I love training, and I'm all about it. And what's funny is I'll have conversations with guys on my department that aren't quite into training, and they'll be like, "Oh, you just want to go out there for like 6 hours every day, don't you?" I'm like, "No, like I still
No.
gotta go on the ambulance calls too, dude. I just want to get a good solid hour, 2 hours maybe, for some crazy stuff, but an hour minimum, and then yeah, we got the rest of our stuff to do. That's okay." But I'm going to give it my
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me now, sitting in where I'm sitting, I'm extremely happy if the companies get an hour of just a solid drill. I mean, and that's all you need for the day, right? Like,
Yeah.
because you said, I remember going through negotiations. It was about the staffing levels and the hours of work, the workload. And so after you took up call time, dinner, sleeping, I mean, you're talking like there's only 3 or 4 hours left during the day for training, right? So it's not like our day is pretty well spoken for,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even at my level, I show up at work and it's like, oh, hey, here's A, B, and C, and D that you got to get done. I'm like, well, I had no idea any of that needed to be done for the day, right? So I remember, same with the lieutenant. The battalion calls, says, oh, you might have had this drill in mind, but guess what? You got to get this, and this done. So it is hard to find that time. You got to carve it out. And yeah, an hour is, and then of course, firemen being firemen, man, we could take that hour, and if we're having a blast with it or we're learning with it, we'll turn it into a 2 or 3 hour gig, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important, is just have an environment. And speaking to like what your dad, when we were talking just before the thing started, we were up at the tower all the time, and we did so much just different techniques. Like, I mean, I remember one time I don't tell EPA, but I mean, we just lit a dumpster on fire. He came up and said, well, how are we going to do this? We lit a dumpster on fire, hit it with the deck, and said, all right, now we know what we're going to do. Right? Like, it was that easy.
Oh, it was a simpler time.
Simple times, right?
Yeah.
But I mean,
man.
it was those kinds of things. We're like, well, everybody stretches lines on a dumpster fire. Why would you do that? Just put the deck gun right on it, lob it in, call it a day.
Hey, I remember being 14 or 15 years old, and maybe I was a little bit older, and I came down, and you guys were doing stuff in the tower, and it had to have been Kephart at the time, and they just lit a burn pile like in the middle of like I think the third floor. They go, all right, kid, get up there, crawl up there, and just see how close you get to the fire. Like that's all they told me. I'm like, yeah, sure, and I go and crawl in, and just I'm crying, I'm coughing, and I came out, and it had to have been Wilbur. Came up and he goes, hey, that's why you wear a mask in there, kid. And then he just runs in without one. I'm like, wait, what? As I'm like crying in the fetal position in the corner,
right? Oh, the good old days,
coming
right?
out of my face. Yeah, you can't do that now. That's
yeah, no, and we all know better now. Thank God.
but I mean,
you know,
it was fun, and I like you said with the dumpster fire thing, like you're getting people in.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, that's the hard part is like now you're governed by a lot of standards, right? Like there's not a day that we would ever, I mean, going back to Ryan, man, I remember going on the ambulance and lighting the tower on fire with just him and I in a 2.5 gallon can. It was showtime, and we would have a blast, like an absolute blast. But now you're governed by standards, right? And so one of the battalions that I work with, he says it the best is as you get up, you see things through a different lens. And so that's where those senior guys come into play. Like, hey, you know, maybe you shouldn't go light the tower on fire, you know, and, you know, if you want to do that, why don't you take a couple companies and go do that, right? You know, and guidance. Because God forbid someone got hurt up there now, you know, it's just a different world we live in.
Yeah.
It was simpler times, hands down. But, you know, that's what I learned a lot from some of the lieutenants. Kind of trying to mentor what they were doing is just that openness to, you know, one of the guys on the crew wants to try something. Yeah, let's go try it. Let's go see what it does. I mean, it might completely fail. Like this might be a horrible idea, or it might just be like, hey, this is something unbelievable. We should try to work this in, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it just, those kinds of things I think are really crucial in the fire service. And I don't see them getting lost. I think, you know, there's a struggle sometimes generationally of how we relate. But, you know, the new people I've seen, they still want to do that stuff, right? They still want to get out there. It's just how do we
Nope, lost you for a sec.
Oh, am I back?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
You were talking about in generational, and you know we don't necessarily lose that stuff, but you know how do we get it? I think you were going to say how do we get it back, right?
Yeah. How do we? Yeah, exactly. How do we get it moving?
Well, I think
how do we push?
Like your story, trying to blend that to today is it was fun, right? There's an attached fun memory to it, and I think like yes, training should have challenges and it should be realistic and all those things, but if you're not having fun doing it, and if you're not creating an environment where people want to be part of it and enjoy it, you've lost.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that kind of goes back to like the whole team sport thing too, right? Like this is really a team sport. There's no question about it. Someone fails, we all fail on the fire ground. There's no doubt about that. And so how do you make that fun? Like, you know, that camaraderie, that closeness. And I'm sure you've seen it in like the honor guard that you do, right? Like it's a tight knit group. It's a really tight knit group. And so how do you keep your company tight knit though? Because that's a little bit more challenging, right? Like there's a whole lot of personalities at work, even in a 4-person company, right? Or a 3-person company. When there's personality conflict, it really can be the Achilles heel of getting some good work done.
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges. Our organization, and I think like we were talking about before, we were getting away from it with station picks and going to assignments because that crew chemistry matters so much more, especially in a 3-person house where you can't just go hang out with one guy that you get along with, because then what's the other person going to do? You know, where if you had, you know, what traditional house would be, you know, a 4-person fire apparatus and a 2-person ambulance, that's a lot. That's 6 people. So you can go hang out with one person and it's not weird.
Yeah. And, you know, you mentioned station assignments or station picks. And I find that interesting because, like, from my point of view, I really haven't really done that. I haven't opened it up, and I know one of the old battalions before me, he would open it up like, "Where do you want to go?" And it was weighted on seniority, and kind of, then he would kind of assign everybody for the year. But I kind of did it on needs and said, like, man, these four are so strong at tower ladder work. Like, there's no question they got to be on tower ladder, right? And then my strong engineers, you're getting on an engine, you're a suppression apparatus. So it's interesting though, because is that something worth looking at for me? Is maybe do open it up, because I guess eventually you could train anybody to be on the tower, right? Like you can train that truck work, right? And there's some that are gifted at it, but
Yeah.
that doesn't really, you know.
Ours was not really more about what you would want to do. It's about who you didn't want to work with.
Oh,
That's what it
yeah,
became with. And then the junior guys, you didn't get a pick. So basically,
yeah,
whoever was last in seniority would end up working with probably the
yeah,
worst crew. So that person never grew. There was no, uh, they didn't get exposure to the right people. I think we're getting away from it because of that. But also I get what you're saying, right? If somebody has an interest in being on the tower ladder and they come up to you and say, "Hey, I want to be on the ladder," I mean, yeah, maybe that is an opportunity to put them on.
hmm
As a battalion chief, you get to make those decisions, right? But like, um,
yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
But and part of that too is though is that's those are those things where, how do we keep the younger generation involved too? How do we keep them motivated? How do we keep them wanting to be part of this organization? And those little easy things of like, hey, yeah, I'll give you 3 months in the tower. I mean, if that's all it takes, take walk, right? Because then you got the next 20 years on the ambulance
Yeah, there you
anyways,
go. Then you get back. No, just back on the meat wagon,
right?
kid. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that as long as your organization has the capability to do those things, for sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I feel extremely blessed with the shift that I work for, because it's just the most solid group of people I've had. Our department's just been blessed with unbelievable personnel from the day I started. So, I mean, while there is always a little bit of personality conflict, it's never driven the department to a place that we really have to think about operationally, or about personality conflicts affecting the department. We've just been absolutely blessed. And Chief's question about who's better, senior man or the company officer, that's been really, to this day, the senior members just, they squash that crap instantly, which is unbelievable, right? Because if you take all that personality conflict out of the equation, it allows you to do some pretty good work.
yeah, yeah. Do you think what makes you? Is it luck? It can't be luck, but so it's kind of a loaded question. But how are you able to keep the quality people? Do you think that that's coming from your recruitment? Do you think that's coming from you guys are a village, so it's going to be your board? Do you guys, or do you think it comes from your probationary period? I mean, if you bounce people out that don't fit, where are you securing those quality people so you continue to keep your organization with quality people?
I think it's a couple. It's a couple levels involved. We do a panel of peer interviews first. So if you're testing for our department, you gotta make it through the interview, and you have either the chief or the deputy. You have at least one or two battalions, a lieutenant, a union rep, and a blue shirt. And so if you make it through that, I mean, if we all feel like you'll be a good fit, then you make it on, right? If we don't, you'll hear there's a representative from every group, and I think that really does have with where we're at, because everyone has a say. And then once you make it through and you get hired, hands down, it's a probationary process. I know that we have had, I don't know if we still do, but my department's had a pretty good reputation of being really tough. It's a tough probation. And I'm proud of that, and the fact that if you make it through our probation, we're going to give you a solid footing to be an aggressive firefighter for the rest of your career. And that is built from that mentoring program that's taken from what we feel, the admin now, all us young kids that were driving that change, we've all made it to the admin side. And so now we feel like we can really drive that change. And yes, our probation's tough, and we very, very, very rarely bounce anybody. Because if we've bounced someone, it's our failure. It's not theirs, right? Like there's only been a couple people, and even to that, I still would reflect on and say that there's something we missed to connect with that individual that we could get them through that probation. I feel like it's our job to lay that foundation, to get that aggressive behavior, that nature out, that desire, that passion for learning and training, and then from there we give them like a 5-year plan. Once they pass the probation, we give them like a 5-year career path of, hey, if you want to be a company officer, here's the classes that you ought to take, and the department supports it. They'll cover time and stuff to do that. And then when you hit that 5-year mark, you have all the things you need to test for company officer. You won't get promoted. Our contract doesn't allow it till year 8, but you could test, right? And you can start gaining that experience. And so laying out those career paths, that professional development aspect, is a great thing. And but I do think that probation, if you just have I always joke, because when I got hired, your dad was one of my lieutenants, and then I had a couple other guys. And my probation was literally memorizing compartments for the most part, right? And just if you performed well day to day, and which was good. But then again, I had to get my ass kicked in smoke divers to figure out maybe I don't really know what I should know, And so now we just kind of front load it, and we really hammer down on a lot of the fundamental skills. But it's, like I said, it's really to build that foundation that they can step on and work from, so they can take their career to the whole next level. And I think it's worked out pretty well.
Well, yeah, I mean, from what it sounds like, right? I mean, if you keep getting quality people, you keep your culture, you keep your standards over time. I mean, that's success right there. If you're able to keep those things together, I mean, that's the win for sure.
Yeah, I think so. We've been pretty blessed. And again, though, there's a lot of people in the right spots that are still passionate, and we care, and we push forward, and we continue to be present on the training ground, and we're always involved. And my old broken body is not the one to throw the 35 anymore. You'd better darn well believe I'll be out there and helping the guys, and going through that evolution with them, and all the battalions do that. All the lieutenants are out there, and there's never a lot of finger pointing. It's working together and getting that buy-in as a group, as a company, to actually get, to stay focused, to stay, positive, and to keep moving forward.
You led right into what I was going to ask the question, how much on every level you guys are involved with the training. That's awesome to get your shift commanders out there, right, with their crew, doing those skills, being part of it, right? Any exposure. They don't have to, again, like you said, be the one, doing the VES and diving through the window, but they're out there and they're participating. Like, that's important for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It was a year ago, actually. I was in the burn tower and doing stuff, and I actually destroyed my back, and 2 surgeries later, I made it back, and all's well. But you have to be involved. You have to push yourself. You have to let the crews know that you're out there with them. Right. And, just my thing, even though it was like a year and a half ago, I think we purchased for the incident command, we got a command board, right? And so it's in front of the building that's on fire, in front of the incident, and you got it flipped open, you're running command. But I don't want to be in the car being comfortable in that, if you guys are getting rained on, I'm getting rained on, period. Hands down. That's the way it's going to be. So that way I know what you're going through. I'm experiencing it. And I know when I got to rotate you in and out, or what I got to do to help. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said you did a short run, and as a company officer, did you have much exposure to it as a blue shirt in terms of like acting or training or anything like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I
Okay.
acted forever.
Okay.
I was, yeah. It just took a long time to get there. I would always, testing wise, I'd always land on number 4, number 5, in the middle of the group there, and so it took a little bit to get up to being number 1.
Yeah.
But you know what? I really, when I was lieutenant, I valued that. I valued that it took that 20 years because there's pretty much a lot that I have done as a blue shirt, and then I know that I could ask the blue shirts once I got promoted to do that. And it was 20 years of building that respect,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You put all that time and all that effort in to build that respect. And so then when you ask them to do something, it's not like, well, what are you talking about? You've never done it. I'm like, well, no, I really have.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and,
So
and you get that credibility,
yeah.
right?
So your transition then probably was a pretty smooth then, right? To go from blue to well, white or gray or whatever you wear.
Yeah. No, it was. The transition from blue shirt to lieutenant was not a big deal. It was challenging because I was union president, but
Yeah.
at that time, but it's still, I mean, that wasn't too tough. Like I said, I wish that I would have had more time moving from lieutenant to battalion because there was a lot to learn and it was a very short time frame.
Did you get much?
But
Oh, sorry. I thought you stopped
oh
talking.
no,
I think it cut out.
yeah. So no, that was a short time frame, and now I'm trying to play catch up because the training for a battalion chief is a completely different training than throwing stuff on the fireground, right? Like
Oh yeah.
you're trying to learn. I mean, now more so for me than ever is building construction, and 20 years of it, yeah, 25 years of it, yes. But now I'm looking at it. I got 20 people in that building, and I got to know what that building's doing, right? Like if I don't have an idea of what that building's doing, then I'm the lunatic because then I'm just risking everybody's life. So those kinds of things, you're just for me. I wish I had a little bit more time as an acting battalion and just a little bit more time in that seat, figuring that kind of stuff out.
Yeah. No, that's interesting for sure. Right. Talking about building construction from a completely different perspective, right? You're not talking about how do I break things, how do I take it apart, how do I, you know what I mean? It's more of the failure points. It's how the fire moves, how your crew can move through it. Yeah, it's a totally different perspective, right? And
Oh, absolutely.
did they set you up in terms of when you were a lieutenant? Did you train much on incident command? Did you train on those kinds of things as a lieutenant or an actor in that case, or no?
Um, and this is kind of where I feel like we might be a little bit weak in. Now I know a lot of departments are blue card, and that's not something that I can't say that we haven't bought into it. I think there's a value to it. I do watch blue card departments, and they run incidents seamlessly, right? It's just not our style.
Yeah.
And so, that for a while there, we were a little bit short on getting all the officers up to incident safety officer, that kind of stuff. But no, there wasn't a whole, like, there wasn't a good transition from lieutenant to battalion as far as training wise. Like, here's a good thing, you should go, a good class to go to, right? Like, IFSI puts on a wonderful command officer, right? Like if you're a lieutenant or an acting BC, you can go to that and learn how to be incident command. Phenomenal course. It's just we really haven't really emphasized that kind of stuff yet.
Yeah, I almost feel like, in just what conversations I've had with firefighters over time, is that the shift commander or battalion chief position is almost like forgotten about for training until you're in it. Like your story is very similar to what a lot of people deal with is, all of a sudden you're basically taking an assessment center on something that you don't have a ton of front-loaded training. And really the only way to get it is to go outside of your organization because most places don't have like good simulators and that kind of stuff. If you're blue card, I guess they got their whole thing, but yeah.
So that's kind of, and then like I'm going through ADFO now, right? Like the cart was ahead of the horse for a little bit here. And so now I'm going through that, trying to catch up and get everything as it should be. It's been a big learning curve and it's been humbling too, is how much you don't know at that level, right? Because now you're taking on, not only are you running incidents, but you're taking on a lot of administrative tasks. And, as a lieutenant, you're not really dealing, you might have a couple budgets you got to manage, but you're not really running a whole lot of major department programs. And so, yeah, I mean, like a big one for me was I got tasked with health and safety officer for the department, which realigned a lot of things of what I had thought to be true. And then you're like, well, okay, so now if I take that and shift it a little bit, because now I'm worried about the entire department being, maintaining their health and safety and welfare. So you have to be able to see things from a different perspective as you move up. But I don't think you should ever lose what color you wore in the first shift. The day you started, you got to remember you were a blue shirt, and you should never forget that.
Absolutely, 100%, absolutely. So you're 2 years into battalion chief role, didn't you say? Right? Correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
darn close. Yeah.
do you feel like, so what types of classes have you been able to take other than ADFO? Are there things that exist in our area? I know you mentioned the IFSI class. Do you know other things that maybe if someone else was looking to get into your position or something that you would suggest?
Yeah, I mean, I've been going to school like crazy lately. I'm doing ADFO, and then I was going to do that IFSI class. I don't know if my back can handle that. I might try it. We'll see. I still do teach, and I teach COFO out in Ipston now. Because again, I do feel if you're teaching, you got to stay on your A game. The other good ones, I'm taking a bunch of administrative coursework now, and then I'm still, for me, like I said, I went to Western and I got offered the job when I was out there. So I'm still finishing up. I got a couple courses left, and gosh, that's really been a goal, to continue to push yourself for that. I do, like you asked, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I do like a couple of them that are out there that really just speak to like that battalion chief or that first due incident command level. Because there's just so much to absorb, right? And the one thing that I've noticed is when you roll up on something, it's got to be that cool, calm collectiveness, right? You just got to take that 15 seconds, take those deep breaths, take the whole big picture in, and then start rolling out with what you got to do. And that's where that seniority really does help, right? It comes into play. And again, going back to that, your heart's not beating 200 minutes right away. It's beating 120 beats a minute. So you're like, all right, what do we got? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What was probably the biggest learning challenge then from in that transition, like that now has clicked, right? The light bulb is on and it makes sense to you. What was the biggest hurdle in that transition?
Ooh, the biggest hurdle probably was actually realizing that I was a battalion chief finally, right? Like, and not like, ooh, look at me. It was more the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and when I took that spot, you didn't realize how much is really on your shoulders for the day. And it's not only just about incidents; it's about making sure that the members are taken care of day in day out. It's when they hurt themselves, filling out all the paperwork like as soon as they can, so that to the ER and get treatment going. So to me, it was that amount of responsibility, because the company officer, obviously, like, you're going in really bad situations. You got a lot of work to do, and you also have to maintain that crew continuity and keep track of everybody and keep them safe, right? But now it's at a macro level. Now it's everybody, and that was the biggest shift. That was like, wow, right? Like that took a good 6 months for me to have that sink in. And once that did, though, it did bring a level of calmness, because then I'm not scrambling to figure out everything for the day and stuff. It's just, once you figure out there's a boatload of responsibility, then you just know what you got to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And it helps me, because now I prepare. I'm already starting. I'm working tomorrow, and I'm already thinking about what I got to get going. What responsibilities do I have to get done? I've already looked on my Outlook calendar for the shift.
Yeah.
What crazy things have to be done. How many car seat appointments have to be accounted for. All that garbage too. But also, what shift am I working? Because I'm on a trade tomorrow, so not my usual group. So where's my strengths, where's my weaknesses, right? And because everybody's at a different level. So, who are my go-tos? Who are the people that I know I can rely on? And as a company assignments, where am I going to be looking to get things done? And so, that stuff, it took a good 6 months for all that to sink in for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, absolutely. And then you hit your stride, right? And you figure stuff out on the way. I think that's yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Administratively, I'm still getting my ass kicked day in, day out.
I don't think even and I'm not a college graduate, but I don't even know if that prepares you for that administrative level. I feel like you just have to just get beat up by it, right? And I have a few administrative things. Like I'm on our training committee, and I do a lot of the back end stuff with our target solutions and lesson plan writing, and like I just finished instructor 2 this week, and like,
oh yeah, that's right, yeah,
right, like the administrative stuff, unless you're doing it, like you need to just be hit over the head with it somewhat, and figure it out as you go, and lean on other people. Like I'm nowhere near your level of administrative tasks. But...
Oh yeah, well, like like I said, like Ryan's our training chief. Like you have to that whole target solutions and the way that they manage it. It's an art, right? And you do it's task loaded, and that's been hard for me too. As you move up, you become more disconnected, right? It's some of it's nature of the beast, and so like I make sure I try to at least take an hour, half hour, go and have a cigar with the boys at night, right? Like that's, to me, is just staying connected with the guys. But as soon as we're done, I got to go back in the office because I got more crap to do, right? Because your daytime stuff is for running daytime stuff. And like I said, it's important to be out on the training ground. It's important to, if you get out to the stations, awesome. But, I want to watch the probationary people working. I want to watch, the newer company officers working, and I want to be there with them so that I can help them. And then the nighttime transitions to getting all the office stuff done. So, and that's fine. I don't mind that, but it does create a bigger and bigger and bigger disconnect as you move up.
Yeah, my lieutenant, and I don't work with him all the time anymore because we rotate with probationary guys. But yeah, he's up till like midnight, I feel like, every night. But he believes in it, just like what you're talking about. Like he spends the time with us, hanging around the kitchen table after dinner, after we clean up, maybe eat some ice cream, that kind of stuff. And then, you know, when we start to fizzle out, maybe either go work on our secondary stuff or go to bed, he's up in that office plugging away. It's just Chief Leidig says it right here. It's the nature of the beast, right? That shows leadership. That's what it's supposed to be. So
yeah, it is the nature of the beast. Without question, it's definitely nature of the beast.
Yeah. So, those of you live, if you got any questions for Jeff, just throw them in here. Otherwise, I'm gonna kind of move into like my like I can't think of the word. My closing questions that I pretty much ask, right? But please, there's a delay in the chat, so throw something in here, and I'll come back to you guys if you got anything else for him, because I'm sure he'd be more than happy to answer questions. But my first thing here, with these last couple of questions from me, and I say last, but it's like 5 of them, so it's not like it's like a blink and we're done. But have you lost your passion? And then what got it back? Because obviously you're passionate about it now. Was there ever a point where you lost it?
Yeah, and we were talking about that ebb and flow. You come in and you're all gung ho, and to me, it was really difficult for me my second year on. It was rough. It was rough, and it was rough because I was about to get married. It was then starting a family, and it was rough because I was struggling at work a little bit. My performance wasn't where I wanted it to be. And so, yeah, it was a challenge. I wouldn't say I lost my passion, but it was hard. And then thank God, I went to smoke divers, and it kicked me right back in a high gear. But it does ebb and flow. And I think, if I looked at my training record, which the DC showed me a little while ago, we have a spreadsheet of all the stuff we've done. And there's a couple years where there's just blanks, and it's not like I didn't get a certification that year. Okay, it's a 25-year career. Who cares, right? A couple blanks in there just means you were just doing what you were doing, right? I remember in 2006, I had my twins, and they did not sleep at the same time, right? They were every half hour. One was up, right? It was
Oh,
brutal. And that year, I ran the most ambulance calls out of any individual in the department too. So it was just, I was getting hammered, right? And I was tired and exhausted, and it was tough. And so, it does ebb and flow. And I remember there was a guy that's at the tower ladder with me, and he was laughing because I was really kind of like that senior blue shirt when he was in probation. And he goes, "Man, I'll never forget when you had your daughter because my life became so easy." Because I was on him so hard prior to that, and then I had my daughter, and I was like, put the brake on. He was, he was the happiest man alive. And it's true. Things just kind of, you got to go up and down. It's a roller coaster. It's not, I wish it was a steady uphill climb, but I don't know of anybody's career that was just always on the up. And so when you get that ebb, when things aren't going the way you want them to go, that's okay. And you just got to kind of say, you know what, just give it some time. Just show up to work, do your best, and you don't have to be the go-getter every day. Trust me, someone else will be there to pull the slack, right? We're all type A. We are all type A individuals. If you're a firefighter, you are type A. And so someone else will pull it up. Someone else will make it work. Someone will say, "Hey, let's go train today," right? It doesn't always have to be you, I guess, is the bottom line, right?
yeah.
I know, you're right. Like, I used to feel like, yes, if I wasn't there, something wouldn't get done. And that's a bunch of baloney. Man, the place is going to run. I'm going to retire and you're going to retire, and there will still be the fire departments, and they will still be out. It's just, you got to realize your family, your friends, your life, all of that has to come into play too. And it has to be balanced. You said it earlier about balance, and it really is about balance.
That ain't my word. What I've been finding, and it's the final question. So if this ends up being your answer again, that's fine. But balance is becoming the number one answer for keeping it going, right, throughout your career. And it's true. Why not, right? Like, and most of us enter the fire service by ourselves, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I entered, no kids, no wife, not even a girlfriend, I think, at the time, right? It's just me. But you leave with a whole lot more coming with you. Like, it's very different, right?
You do.
I actually got a question from Chief Leidig for you here. So he's asking, what do you see as the 3 biggest challenges for future fire officers?
Oh, that's a good question. Mm-hmm. One is we talked about it to a pretty good extent, is connect the generational gaps. And for a company officer, for future company officers, I think it's going to be a struggle because the differences, and I guarantee when I started, they were like, "That freaking new kid," but the drives of what makes the newer generation tick and stay motivated are different than just monetary value, right? Like, pay raises were great, and that kept me wanting to work. And it's not the same now. And like you said earlier about, connecting with the probationary person might not care that the senior guy has 20 years, right? So that's got to be a challenge. To me, my biggest challenge for future company officers, like especially in my place too, is building construction. We're throwing up 6-story wood frame buildings. 6-story wood frame buildings. They are meant to kill us, hands down. They will kill us. And just because they got sprinklers, that ain't going to do it. It's flat out not going to do it. So learning your building construction and staying ahead of that curve. And I don't even know if we're going to be able to tell you the truth. At some point, that those buildings, that building's a loss. It's just, can you get everybody out in time? And with that kind of construction, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, there's some challenges for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, last one, I think it's a challenge for company officers to keep some of the traditions alive too. You know, changing things just to change isn't necessarily good, right? Like there should be a value of if something's changing of why. Um, and again, I've been in a department, I've been blessed that we always break bread together, right? Like day in, day out, we're doing lunch and dinner. And if it's a Sunday, it's breakfast and dinner. Um, and that's part of that crew continuity, like, right? I don't care if we're pissed off at one another beyond belief. And I've made the guys mad at me plenty. There's been days where it's been a quiet dinner table, but we we always do it, and there's always a level of respect and care for one another when you're at that table, right? Like all things aside, we're breaking bread together, we're family, and keeping that mentality. I think for some of the departments out there, I think that's a struggle. And I bet it's a struggle for a lot of combination departments because we don't face that, right? Like we're all full time. For ones that are combination, I think it probably would pose a challenge. But keeping some of the traditions alive, because, sometimes they're forgotten about when those senior guys, when they retire, it's gone if we don't keep it alive.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with the future generation, they want to know what my generation too. I mean, wants to know why, and if you don't explain why history and culture and those things, why you sit down and eat together, they don't care. They've lost it, and a lot of people will get upset about that statement, but. It's up to
Yeah.
you to make them understand why it's important, right? It's up to all of us to do that.
Yeah, and that's one that I'm always big on. For me is I never answer the phone station, right? It's always firehouse, right? And I know it's corny, right? But that's where your family lives. And so it's always Firehouse 33 to me. It's never fire station, it's firehouse. And so, but a lot of people are like, why do you say firehouse? I'm like, well, that's where we live, bro. Like that's our house. That's a third life has been spent there. And so, yeah, it's my home. And so those little things, they go a long way when you start to actually reflect on them about what they truly mean.
Yeah, no, those little words do matter. They really do. I'm with you, and I don't pick up the phone that way, but I might change. I love that. But if we're at the grocery store or something, hey, you want to stop by home real quick and we'll grab whatever before we head over to the other house? Like that's how I talk, right? And I didn't really think about
Yeah,
that there is value in that. That it makes it
yeah,
feel more. I mean, like I said, 30 year life. It's a house. It's your home.
absolutely, absolutely. And everybody you're there with, I mean, they're your family, and it is important to take care of them.
Yeah. Leidig said excellent answers, and I would echo that as well. So he said thank you for answering his
Perfect.
question. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So early on in your career, well, we kind of already talked about it, I think, but I'll give you a chance to maybe answer again. Who influenced you the most early in your career?
There were a couple. Obviously, Ryan, without a question. He was a very, very big focal point in my career. And we're very good friends to this day. And not without our struggles, like right, like when you're union president and you got to go up against it, it's challenging. Um, but definitely Ryan, and there's a couple others though. There were a couple other people. I'm sure you remember Ricky Thomas. Um, Larger than life, right?
Yeah.
Larger than life individual. Never seen someone so calm under pressure as Ricky, and he was phenomenal at that and taught me a boatload about it actually. Um, and Mike, like Mike Roach, just unbelievable engineer, right? I think Mike did what 41, 40, 42 years maybe. I mean, the man just never wanted to stop working, and what I got out of him was, I mean, not besides his skill sets, um, was that he loved the job. I mean, the man didn't need to be working, and he just loved doing what he did. And he was always good for pointing out, work through the stupidity and the silliness because there's value in your job, and it is the best job out there. Those are a couple. I mean, I could go on and on and on without a
Yeah.
question. I've worked with great officers, and a couple of them. I remember Mikey Dunn. He taught me all the FA stuff, and really, he emphasized to me about training. And, boy, we used to give him garbage because it'd be 3 o'clock. And he's like, let's go out. But he always saw value, and he's like, it's my job to make sure you get home, and this is how I do it. And so there's a lot to that, right? Your dad, when I worked with your dad, about always being open and willing to try new things. So you look at all these different people coming in, I wish there was one, but there's been hundreds, and they build this individual that they help you build your career. You take bits and pieces from everybody, and you kind of try to do it the way you want. And everybody has something to offer usually, that's my opinion.
Yeah. You're again, you hit the nail on the head. I'm with you. Like, I didn't realize personally here, the foundation that I gathered, and I know we've mentioned my dad a couple times, but we didn't talk shop. We didn't do this stuff really. He was very good about letting me figure this stuff out for myself. He would put me around the right people. So when I would come and, and I was starting to get interested in the job, he would put me with people like you and Ryan. And I didn't realize what a foundation that set for me as a young kid who was maybe going to get into the fire service, but didn't really know what he was doing. And like the values that I have so deeply burned into who I am as a fireman, I got from guys like you. And I did not know that up until maybe not recently, but pretty recently. I made it through a lot, and I would always get frustrated because people wouldn't see things the same way I did, because I would see it through a lens, that you guys helped kind of set up. So this is a rare chance for me to be able to say thank you. Because this is why I put this question in here, is because we don't always get an opportunity to say thank you or to kind of let people know what they actually did for us in our career, right? Even if, Roach isn't going to listen to this, but to mention him, like, that means something, right? And so I love to hear those stories. We don't champion our early mentors and influences enough, and we never get to tell them thank you because they're gone.
Yeah. Once they hit the door, you're blessed if they come back, a couple times a year, But it's funny because when you're in those positions, like you just mentioned about, going to the tower with us, like it wouldn't even have dawned on me as setting a foundation for a young kid that's thinking about it, right? Like it's who we are, right? And so I truly believe if you live your life the way you want to live it and you act the way you feel you ought to be acting, it's incredible how many people you can influence or impress upon, the good values in life. So trust me to always help out.
Oh, I lost you.
I never even. Oh, am I back?
Yeah, you said you're starting to say trust, I think.
Oh, I was just gonna say, trust me. I'm always willing to help. I feel like, it's just we were just out there having the time of our life.
Yeah, it's just a Wednesday or whatever it was for you guys, but like it was a huge foundational impact. And so I've had conversations with guys at work, and I talk about what's right and what we're supposed to be and all those things, right? And they're like, where does that come from? What do you mean that's right? Why are you right? And I'm like, well, why do I think this way? And I started to kind of reconnect with where I came from in that way. And the impacts that were made on my career beforehand. And it just goes to show, Vitaly talked about it in my last episode about the impact you can have at a block party. And that happened to him, is you just at a block party and the firemen were cool to you, and that meant something. So then you're like, oh, maybe I'll go be a firefighter. And like, if you make the right impact, you never know.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's really incredible to think about, and especially in today's world, because let's face it, there's not hundreds of people knocking on the door, right? Like when a position opens, before we opened it back up to just EMTs, it was, you're getting 20, 30 applicants. And so, so when you have the ability to positively impact, and, trust me, I don't think you should ever be reflecting negative on the department or yourself when you're in public, no matter what, right? Like that should be a given. Yeah. But when you have the chance to give a kid a tour, you shouldn't be a burden. This is an opportunity to, show the kid the ropes and go the extra mile too, and that's something. I'm not saying take every kid up to the burn tower for Pete's sake,
Well,
but
yeah.
if you could pull the rig out and run the pump and stretch a line and let them see that, or I mean, that stuff, man, that might, like you said, at a block party, that might last on a kid forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And this doesn't have to be someone you directly know, right? But who would you say best personifies the American firefighter? And they could be deceased, they could be still living, they could be from New York. I don't care. Who do you think best personifies the American firefighter?
Yeah, this was a tough one.
I know it's
This was a tough one. Boy, there's so many people. I really did get a boatload from, like I said earlier, when Danny Sheridan came out and talked with us. I mean, you want to talk about a guy that is humble, understands the job, understands people, and is genuine. And I don't know if you listened to his keynote at FDIC, but that too, about, there's more in this world than just the miracles on the fire ground. Where do they come from? Was his keynote. And, a just unbelievable guy, and the work ethic that I've, second to none. So I would put him up there, honestly. As far as anybody else, boy, I don't know. There's so many good firemen out there, like there really are. There are so many good firemen. Guys that are just aggressive, gals that are aggressive, and they, go the extra mile, and I'm not just talking about the Instagram firefighter, like that's easy. That's easy to put up 40 shots a day, like you're doing it and slaying it. but the truth be known is how you act in the firehouse, how you act when you're in public. Are you aggressive? I mean, those things, geez, there's a couple dudes that I work with that I guess I would put them right up there. And I don't know if like Steve Urban, he teaches out in NIPSTA. Like he's a crazy dude, but I've never seen a guy work or care so much, right? Like the guy, and I wouldn't even say it's just a one person. It's the culture. There's just an immense amount of us out there that care and that are out there to help one another, lift each other up. And the other guy, I guess, is Chris Prager, right? You know Chris, I'm sure,
oh, yeah.
right? Talk about a guy that's just deep in his faith and yet is an unbelievable athlete and unbelievable fireman. And, I can't tell you how many people have turned to him in a time of need, and he's always been there to help, right? So, I mean, I guess, there's 100 of them. I could keep going and going.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's a tough question, right? It's tough to narrow
It
one
is.
person down. I'm with you.
Yeah.
So I've reframed this question because I try to make it make more sense. So right now, the state of the American Fire Service, if you were to triage it, so we'll say in terms of EMS here, black would be dead, red would be dying, yellow would be hurt, and then green, we're good to go. Where would you put us right now?
Oh man, I'd say we're doing fine. I'd say we're in a green zone there. It's no surprise that what we went through on the 4th of July, right? Like, and I watched so many people, and I was hurt, mind you, so I wasn't even there that day. But a couple days later, I came back, and I watched. I think we had 13 different fire departments covering for us when we were doing our debrief. Every local in pretty much Lake County and Cook County offered help, right? Everybody came to help, and then I watched what we did that day as a department, and man, we were wow. I still to this day stand in awe of what those guys and gals did that day. That just helped reignite my faith that things are right. They're not broken, right? Like when things go south, we always fix the problem. And I don't see many major problems with the fire service. Recruitment and retention would be the biggest. And I don't see that as killing the American Fire Service. I see it as there's always going to be people that want to get dirty and want to work and believe in the mission of protecting people's lives and property. There's people that are called to it. And I just can't imagine this world without that. So I personally believe like we're doing just fine.
I love it. I love it. So what do we do to maintain that, right? How do we keep it?
Yeah. I think you just set the example. I think you do. I think you keep setting that example and you keep raising the bar for our own selves, for our standards. I think whether it's, I know that CLC is a tech campus, right? Or you kids are still doing, volunteer time up in a couple of the Northern Lake County departments and stuff like that. And when those people are out there, you represent the fire service in the best manner possible. And you don't degrade people. You don't need to talk down to people if they're just starting out, and you build them up. You bring them up and you get them going because it's a great gig. There's no doubt about it. It's not only put food on my table, but for me, it's been 25 years of having the best job ever. My kids always like, well, Dad, you love going to work. I'm like, oh, I do. And I mean, there's only been like maybe 5 days that I didn't want to go in my 25-year career. Like, it's not a bad thing, right? Like, I'm blessed.
Yeah.
I'm blessed. And not everybody gets that. Not everybody in this world gets to have that kind of opportunity. So, sharing that passion, I think if you share that passion with people, I think without question, that'll keep things moving,
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love it. What an awesome answer. So what would be then, on a personal note, right? What would you say is the most important element to end your career as positively as it began?
Oh boy,
This is the one everybody says balance to. So if you take the flyer and you say balance, I'm not going to make fun of you because it's such a good answer. But if you want to be creative,
I'm not going to say balance. I think it's important to leave on your own terms. I think it's important to leave with the reputation that you feel you want. I think it's important to not settle and to not, what I would never want to do is just put it on coast or cruise control, right? I'm going to go out swinging. And when it's my day to walk out, well, I'll walk out and maybe I'll find another door to open and step into another thing. But when it's, I don't ever want to be that guy that walked out on cruise control. That to me is so important. I want to be the guy that's fighting to the day I walk out. So yes, balance is important, but if we're talking personal, it's about staying driven.
yeah, well, awesome answer. Absolutely. Yeah. I love it for sure. Well, that's it. That's it. My questions here. I mean, thanks if you guys were live here in the chat, and thank you. I mean, awesome conversation. I really enjoyed this, and it's great insight. I really appreciate you coming on and talking and sharing your wisdom.
Oh, of course. Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I don't get to do these, so this has been great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
With that, we're gonna call it a night. If anybody wanted to get a hold of you, maybe if they wanted further advice or something of that, how could they do so?
Well, they could always email me at work. Marusich at cityhpil.com, or yeah, I mean, you can email me at work or look me up I think I'm on Facebook. But I'm around, cool. And and then if someone does have a serious question or whatever, they can get my cell phone from me or whatever. That's not a problem.
Cool.
Always happy to help.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for coming on, and thank you guys if you were listening, and I appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one. I've got I can't remember. Ryan Constantino coming up. He's part of Shield 23, and he's going to talk about that organization, which is pretty cool. Out of a tragedy comes a really positive thing. So join us. I don't have the date on the top of my head, but he's next up. So I appreciate you listening, and thank you.
Awesome. Alex, thank you much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.